Isn't salvation, heaven, hell, miracles a lot more important than biblical finances? And the question is obviously yes, but it will surprise you on how much the Bible has to say when it comes to managing our money, our investments, and overall our finances. Let's get into it. So I want to share with you 9 different tips on biblical investing and how you can essentially become a much better steward of your finances. The first few are very generous and can be applied to pretty much any investment. And then we'll get more specific on the stock market and what the Bible has to say about that. So the very first one is compound interest. Albert Einstein called it the ninth wonder of the world. And those who understand it, earn it. Those who do not, pay it. So what is compound interest? When you put money in a bank or any essentially investment account, it's going to earn some interest, right? Compound interest is simply the fact that when you put money in, that money is going to go to work. And when you get the interest payment, that money now is also available to go to work and generate interest. So essentially you're generating interest on interest on interest on interest. Here is an example. If we start with $1,000 and the bank is paying you an interest of 5% per year, at the end of year 1, you'd have $1,050. But in year 2, your total capital that is earning interest is not just 1,000, but the entire 1,050 that you earned in year 1. So you take the 5% and it's actually applied now to the 1,050, which would give you an interest, not just $50, but $5,250. And you do this for year 3, year 4, and it is a fantastic way to build capital with very little to no risk. The second one goes really well with the first, and it is a term that we use a lot, and it is time in, not timing. So time in the market beats trying to time the market, so timing the market. So when you're investing, one of the things you need to be cognizant of is that money is going to be tied up for, the medium to long haul. You shouldn't try to get into get rich quick schemes, and you shouldn't be looking at ways where you can make a lot of money really fast. 99% of people that do this and are day trading are actually losing money. And there's a lot of research that will back this up. Professionals have a very hard time picking stocks. Anyone that is, right now in Carvana, that's down like 90%. Anyone that's in Meta, Tesla, anyone that's in one of Kathy Wood's ARK investments, which she is a professional, by the way, and she is having a hard time in this market. Imagine a layperson like me or you trying to do the same thing. It is a phenomenal way to take any capital you have and take it to zero. Ultimately, nobody can predict when a market is going to go into a bull run or a bear run, when the market hits its very top and you should sell, or when it's at its very bottom. What you need to do is, if you have the opportunity to take out some earnings and it's after 12 months, so you're going to pay capital tax gain and not consider it as ordinary income, which we can get into that another time. So when you invest any capital, you should consider it that it's going to be, for the medium to the long haul. So think 5 to 10 years. You shouldn't need that money for anything else. The longer you sit in the market, the better. Nobody knows when the market is going to top off and now it's time to sell because it's about to go down. Or hey, look, now it's at the bottom, so let's buy. Nobody realistically knows that. So if there's someone that tells you that they do, or if you feel like you do, you're probably wrong. It's not something you can build a fundamental stock picking strategy on, is gut feels. One important thing to keep in mind is don't be greedy with your wins. And what I mean is, like, if you have a stock that's generating a lot of income and it's already giving you a decent return, don't just try to hang on to it just because it's going to always continue in that trend. That's not the case. You can always liquidate some of it and keep some of it, or you can always sell your original capital and keep anything that this stock has earned in there. I do this fairly often. The same thing goes for your losses, right? Don't be prideful when it comes to your losses. My biggest mistake in, I think, ever was I bought Carvana stock after buying a car from Carvana, and I thought the experience was amazing. So I went out, I bought Carvana stock just based on the experience. The stock literally tanked. It went down 10, 20, 50, 60. And then I was like, okay, now I need to cut ties. I didn't do it sooner because I was emotionally attached to the stock, and essentially pride on my own decision kept me in the market longer, in the position longer, made me lose more money. Number 3 is budget, so you can actually stay in longer. So time in is key, but you need to plan to keep time in, right? If you actually take a look at the last 20 years here in the US. The US has never had a long extended period of negative returns. And if you actually look at the numbers and do the research, as of my recording of this video, December 30th of 2022, Happy New Year to you, by the way, the stock market is at a phenomenal entry point because it is so low that a lot of the risk is reduced, right? But if you look at the last 20 years of the stock market, here's where the numbers look like. The average return of the S&P 500, which is the 500 of the largest companies here in the US, is 11%. Over the past 20 years, the average has been 9.87. So if you kept your money in there, you would get an average return of 9.87 each year. And over the past 10 years, it's 16.4% year over year. That is insane. As a Christian, you should have a structure in place where you're always thinking about eternity. And that means your assets as well. It should help you. But if you are having any issues keeping a consistent guideline on how much money should be going in and what should be staying in, I have a phenomenal budget guide. It's called the Biblical Guide to Budgeting. And if you DM me on Instagram, I will send that out to you free of charge. Just shoot me a DM and tell me you watched this video and you'd like the guide, and I'll send it over to you. So on the second category is a specific asset advice. The Bible obviously has a lot to say about this. And the very first thing is obviously diversification, where you know the saying very well, which is don't keep all your eggs in one basket. I usually like to take it a step beyond and say, hey, look, if don't keep all your eggs in one basket, don't have just baskets, and don't have just eggs. Ecclesiastes 11 verse 2 says, invest in 7 ventures, yes, in 8, because you do not know what disaster may come upon the land. So from here, you can say that you should diversify your investments, because if one of them goes down, if one of them loses, if one of them crashes and burns, you do not lose everything. It's very sad to see a lot of stories right now of people who sold the house and bought Bitcoin when it was at its all-time high, and now it's completely crashed. These stories happen all the time. So not only should you diversify, but in your diversification, only invest in things that you know and understand. This year has been insane. The past 2-3 years have been insane, right? Between pandemics here and there, and the war with Russia and Ukraine, geopolitics that are putting pressure on everybody's finances, right? Here in the US, in Brazil, where I'm from, it has been a very hectic few years. So you need to set up your investments in the way that they're diversified enough that you're going to get international exposure and exposure to different parts of the world, different market segments, different companies, but at the same time, never invest more than 10-15% of your capital in one thing. So one of the things that I've experienced is the greater the potential reward or return, the greater the potential risk. And one of the things we can do as a Christian is try to minimize your risk as much as possible. Not just when it comes to investing, but when it comes to all things, right? When it's dealing with your money and your finances. One of the things that Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett talk about all the time is how they have been able to amass, massive wealth just by not being stupid and doing stupid things. You can look up this quote. He actually says it. Another story that Charlie actually talks about, and Charlie is Warren's right-hand man. He is one of the most famous investors in history. And he tells a really cool story where most tennis matches are not actually won, they're simply lost. Because if a person can just do the basics for long enough, their opponent is going to make a mistake and it's going to cost them a point, obviously. So when it comes to investing, if you can just stay in the game, do the basics, do the boring bread and butter nonstop, that is going to eliminate a lot of your risk. The second thing that I always recommend when you're trying to avoid risk is understanding what you're investing in. You don't have to understand all the companies in and out, but instead of trying to day trade or stock pick, do ETFs and longer term. Instead of doing small caps, do large cap. There is a lot that can be done to mitigate the risk, and obviously you can't avoid it entirely. Nothing we can ever do is going to avoid the risk, right? If you say, hey, look, Jay, I'm just going to put my money under the mattress. It's just going to be hidden away, in this book down here. Here's what happens though. The house can burn down, meteor can hit. There is no such thing as a risk-free place to keep your money. The only risk-free place where you can invest is in heaven, where rust and thieves will never get to it. While on this earth, our money always is going to have some risk. So you can essentially pick your risk. Do I want to risk that my money is just going to sit here and never grow? Or do I potentially want to ensure that the money is going to grow steadily, slowly, consistently, and I'm still going to have the same level of risk? The option is fairly clear, and up to you to make your decision. All right, so the next one is emotional intelligence, and I want to read to you a passage out of Matthew chapter 6 that says, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? But look at the birds of the years, they do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Much more valuable than they are any of you. By worrying, can you add a single hour to your life?" So as Christians, and well, as humans actually, we're going to be worried. We're always worried about what can go bad. And the human mindset has a way of taking something that could potentially go wrong and escalating it to like the worst possible event of all time. We've done this, I've done this, you've done this. When it comes to your investments, there is always going to be an emotional concept to your finances. Always. It's almost impossible. But as you become an experienced investor, you're going to be able to separate both of them. I told you my story earlier with Carvana. Carvana was not the only stock I got emotionally attached to. It happened with AliExpress, and it's happened with several others, right? If you can understand fundamentals enough, and ever since I started investing in ETFs, I have no emotional, because I don't even know what stocks are in there pretty much, right? It is just a, look, here are the numbers. I'm going to go where the numbers are. There is no heart to this. It is simply a, hey, here's where I can put money so it grows. Once it grows, now I can put my heart into it, and I can pull money out and do what the Lord is advising me to do with the money that it grew to. As it's growing and as it's working, doesn't matter to me. All right, guys, that's it for today. I know I mentioned 9, but it's going to be in a part 2. The other 3 are fairly long, so I am going to do a part 2 of this video. If there's something you want me to cover in that video, comment below or shoot me a DM on Instagram. I greatly appreciate it. I appreciate you watching this video all the way through the end. Guys, happy 2023. I wish you all the best. If there's any content you want to see, I'm always available. There's a lot that I'm working on for 2023 to make myself, a better person, a better husband. But obviously, I want to be a better steward of my finances and teaching you all about it in the process so we can join and do this journey together. God bless you.